Assalamu alaikum, everybody. This is TSF, and we are here to review a Pakistani superhero short film called All Stars that has been produced and directed by Titan Productions. And we all me and Umair, we both got to watch it today. And Mubarak and Suhaib did as well, but unfortunately, they couldn't join us for the review because the sharks are attacking the internet
The
cables.
internet.
So that's why. But let's just get started on this review. For the first thing, because the director of this movie was the one who sent it to our DMs, for which we thank you so much for that. So I'll get started on the things that I really you know uh, came to me from this particular movie are the special effects, because for a movie that has no budget and it's being produced by students, the special effects are really solid, I would say. Like the kind that you sort of don't expect, and for a zero budget film, that they're done really well. And furthermore, the kind of effects, of course, they are reminiscent to all of the DC and Marvel comics and sort of the movies and all. And I kind of really like where they were taking this. It's just that I do feel the story could have offered us more than what it did. And I personally feel like there is so much more that you can do with a story that has the kind of premise or context that it does. So, Umair, what do you think about it?
So what did I think? I do agree with you that I do think that the special effects are pretty impressive, given that they didn't have a budget of any kind and they were working on this movie. Like the power effects, they all looked pretty good. Can't argue that. The color eye changes, the lights on the like the green teleport circles and all that. It's all pretty good. Can't argue that that's pretty good. The cinematography was also pretty well done in some places. I have to say, like some shots were pretty good. I did enjoy looking at those shots. Apart from that, I think that it was I mean, for a movie that didn't have a budget or didn't have any kind of nobody, I don't imagine anybody in this movie had some kind of filmmaking background. It was a pretty decent movie. I mean, it's a pretty decent love letter to superhero movies, if anything else, if nothing else.
True, and it's kind of like you can't even say like it's a very bad movie or it's a very good movie. It's, I would say personally, it's neither of those. It's neither good nor bad, nor too good nor too bad. It's a movie, basically.
Mm.
That's what I'm getting at. And you can argue that is it like the kind of step that short films should be taking or should not. But again, it's a step. It's an effort that's being done, and I guess that's something that should be commendable. So the only gripes that I have with the story are that the entire thing was a little bit unclear for you, and for a person like me who has pretty much not been subscribed to their channel, I sort of lacked context in a lot of things. Like, of course, you're opening up with this scene where pretty much everybody's lying down. So all of a sudden you get that hype that, okay, maybe later on this scene is gonna be connected somewhere. And they do connect it, but then again, the context is so much lacking that, you sort of just don't get it much. You really tried hard to understand where the story is taking you, but it's just that, like, you sort of fail to connect to the emotional depth that this story is trying to portray. Like, particularly, for example, when there are three of the members of the All Stars force, they're trying to talk, and they're saying that sentences like, this is bigger than us, or as one of the dialogues were, that kya ye zyada big nahi ho raha, something. And that was something that this may be a little bit of a nitpicky thing, but the thing is, of course, you really want to define the language of your short film. Either keep it super Urdu or super English. You can't just sort of mix them together, because kind of creates that really tussled situation where you're like, okay, what's my target audience? Who am I, showing this to, pretty much. So there's that. And my second gripe with this production was that, okay, we can put aside, like, okay, there's production errors or cinematography errors or whatever. But in terms of the writing of characters and the writing of the dialogues, it's just they just don't hit home. Like, there's so many good dialogues that if they were put right, they would have been really good. But it's just that they were not timed as well as they should have been. So there's that. And my third and last gripe is the characters themselves. Like, the only memorable character for me personally who I liked in the entire All Stars was Kabir, the guy in the trench coat. And personally for me, that guy was doing the best acting in
Yeah.
terms of if you put that in comparison. But remember in Arc Exodus, that's what we talked about as well. Like, you have
Hmm.
Johnny Young Bosch, who's a very talented actor. And that's why, by comparison, subconsciously you start viewing the others with that particular bar, which is quite high. So for me, Kabir was setting that particular bar right there, even though again his character was someone who I really would have liked to see more. Like, the mystery that character created, I personally would have liked to see it more, but that wasn't delivered for me. So those are my three main gripes with this particular short film. So Umair, what about you?
Okay, so my gripes. First of all, yes, Kabir was probably the best acted, like the best character in this short movie. His acting was great. He at least looked distinguishable from the other heroes in this movie based on
Yeah.
his dress. Although I would also say that his dressing was also very much inspired from John Constantine
Yeah, pretty much.
as well. Yeah,
That's the recall I was getting as well.
yeah. So that's there for sure. I as a writer myself, I mean, I do have to agree with you that the writing just it suffers a bit, just a bit, right? Where um, there are just certain places where dialogue just doesn't blend with the scene, and in certain places where the tone and the dialogues don't match,
Yeah.
right? Um, a lot of this movie is, I want to say, and I mean that in the nicest possible way, it's just a little all over the place, right? There's no cohesive form of narrative and there's no cohesive style or theme throughout the movie. Like, yes, danger is coming, but the danger doesn't arrive for 20, 35, oh, let's say 30 of the 40 minutes of this movie,
True, true,
right?
true.
And even then, without giving spoilers, that technically it doesn't arrive either.
In a manner of speaking, yes, because you are
Yeah.
constantly saying, "Oh, danger isn't gone, things are still not safe," but you're constantly questioning the entire 35 to 40 minutes. Like, okay, what exactly is the dangers? What are the visions that you are seeing? Because this word was thrown around a lot. Like, I'm having
Yeah, I
visions.
mean,
I'm having visions. So why
yeah,
aren't we
like
as an audience saying that?
I mean, half the movie is just talking about the visions that they see, and there's no clear definition of what those visions are,
True.
right? There's, I mean, a little glimpse here and there would be nice, but they didn't do that at all.
Yeah.
Another thing that somewhat bothered me is that like there's a lot of things are up in the air, right? So like in this one scene where he talks about how he recruited I want to say Zahir. He was talk. One of the characters was talking to Zahir, and he was saying, "I recruited you because you and me are very similar." But from what I understand, they formed a team because they were all superheroes together.
Yeah,
Like they
that's what
all
my
came
understanding
across,
was as well. Yep.
right? Because that's what the movie leads us to believe, and now they're talking about recruitment. So like little things like this in writing kind of throw off the viewer, right? And
True.
it's just something that they can work on. I mean, it's not too much of a blunder. It's just something that obviously you need to work on.
Yep.
Obviously, writing isn't an exact science. You get better at it the more you do it. But I think these are like the only kind of little issues I'd have with the movie. Otherwise, I'd say I wouldn't say wouldn't have watched it. I'm glad I watched it. I'm still pretty glad I watched it, if nothing
Yeah.
else.
It's like kind of like, your way of showing them a support. Like, okay, hey, you guys tried. It's a step in a direction. And,
Hmm.
if you are committed to being better or improving upon the mistakes or something, because again, you as filmmakers or story writers, you would know, okay, these were our mistakes, of course. I
Hmm.
mean, you as a writer, after writing something, you can just go back to it and go like, okay, yeah, this doesn't make sense, I can
Mm-hmm.
change that. So in this scenario, like, I would actually like to quote Sohaib here, because when we were discussing about All Stars, he made a really good point. He was like, while production, costumes, all of those things, they do
Mm-hmm.
require money.
Yep.
Even acting to a point, of course, that is
Yep.
something that you need to train yourself. But writing is free.
Right.
Like, you can read up really good literature, watch really great movies, take from them, and then you can come up with something that really works, like flows together from a start to an end. You have a problem, you have a solution, you have the final act.
Right.
Straightforward.
No, the only point that I want to make before the rating is that I agree with Suhaib. Like I said to you before we started this review that with this, I could let everything else be like, yes, it's a low budget production, so I'll judge everything else accordingly. But the writing is something that doesn't cost anybody any money, and that is the one thing that I'm going to base my review on, like the writing of this movie. Everything
Pretty
else,
much.
yeah. So based on that, I would say I give this movie a 5 out of 10.
Okay. Okay.
Right?
For
I
me,
mean, for forgiving everything else, the writing just doesn't work for me, honestly. If it was a more
true.
cohesive story, I would have enjoyed it a lot more.
True. For me, personally, of course, like, what before I give my score, of course, I don't wish to for the score to be discouraging, because again, at the end of the day, we are reviewers and we have to be unbiased and give exactly our constructive
Hmm.
criticism, because okay, this is what we felt as an audience. So the plus points, like the pros, are like, of course, the some of the cinematography, some of the dialogues, I would even say, and of course the
Hmm.
special effects that really make this stand out. So those are the pros, and the cons being, of course, number one is the writing, number two is the acting on some of the people's part. Like, you have one guy who's acting really well, who was Kabir, and the other ones are not exactly able to match that bar. So you see that comparison, like he is there and the other ones, like, there's a huge difference.
There's a
So
very huge difference, yeah.
there's a very huge difference. So given that, I would give it like, I would say a 3 out of 10, because it's just that, like, just special effects cannot make your movie a great movie, and we have seen that happen with so many of the higher budget productions as well, The Last Jedi included. So,
Hmm.
I mean, in this scenario, of course,
We
our
differ
scores
on
are not.
Last Jedi.
There's a whole different discussion on that one,
That's a different discussion.
but yeah, our scores are not meant to discourage in any sort of way.
Yeah,
But
they're not.
however, we do appreciate that this is a step in a direction, whether right or wrong. That's for none of us to decide. It's a
Hmm.
step in a direction, and what we would like is that, it's improved, and the mistakes are looked at, and of course, we would always look forward to seeing an even bigger and a better production from these guys in the future, because then, keeping everything aside, they do show promise. They do show that dedication to the superhero genre, which it has been so much overlooked in Pakistan as of late. So, with that, I guess we can conclude our review. So, thank you so much for
Yep.
joining us. And do follow our page, our YouTube channel, and stay safe. Take care, guys. Bye bye.
Right. Take care.